Welcome to Expedition Light Bulb. Today we are going over the awesome 781 lantern by Ryobi. In 2017, the addiction started. I never intended it for it to be an addiction, but at least I'm admitting it now. In 2017, we had a big trip planned to go to Alaska. So we're actually trying out all our equipment in New Mexico because it was a zero-fail expedition for us. We started in Texas, driving all the way to Alaska, and it was a really good trip. We were intending for the Ryobi system to be a backup to our solar, but as you can tell, the weather in Alaska is either raining or foggy, drizzly, or snowing, or just plain out wet like this picture. But it's very beautiful. So the Ryobi system actually became our primary way of lighting because we can charge it from the Tacoma, from our truck. It was a great adventure, but this is how this addiction started, and it just continues on YouTube. And yes, I do admit I have a problem. That is the first step to recovery. The purpose for this lamp for us is going to be number one, our vacations and our expeditions. This is just enough illumination for us to see around the campsite. Number two is going to be fixing up the house. This is just going to give me enough light for me to finish that task. Number three is going to be for tornadoes. This is in our makeshift tornado shelter, and this is going to be the main light that goes in there. That way we can see what is going on in our little tornado shelter. Number four ties in with number three. This is for emergency preparedness. Because of the light and the USB port, this is for emergency preparedness. Let's talk about the specs. It has a hook. It doesn't have the old handle like this predecessor did. It's enough for the 550 cord to get on there and just be balanced, and it has never failed us. You could also turn this, which is a nice feature too. Let's talk about the Cree LED light. This is 3 watts and it's diffuse. It's not the best diffusion. As you can see, it kind of hits the top and then diffuses the light a little bit more. This is at 330 lumens and this is going to be at 80 to 100 lumens here. I coupled this with a 3 amp battery, and the runtime on this is supposed to be 18 hours. Of course, it's not going to be that efficient, so I'm going to say about 15. I never run it for that long, and I always recharge it, so it's a non-factor for me. The weight and balance of this. Since the battery is on the bottom part, it has a really good base. All the weight is on the bottom, and it's very light. And the weight on this is actually going to be 17 ounces, so that's pretty light still. Let's talk about the height. From here to here, it's 7.5 inches. With the battery, it's going to be 10 inches, and the width here of the battery is going to be 3 inches. And across, at its widest, is probably around 6 inches over here. This is pretty compact. If you have a OnePlus battery, this is going to be as big as the unit itself. All of their tools seem to be that way. Let's talk about the USB port. The USB port is going to output at 5 watts only. It is only 1 amp, 5 volts. So it's only going to push out 5 watts. Normally, any USB would be 2.1 at 5 volts, which is going to give you around 10 watts of output. So it's going to give you half the output. That being said, this is charging. It will just charge very slowly. In the manual, it'll also say that if you have the light off, this will charge for the next 4 hours. If you want to recharge it, all you have to do, turn the light on, turn it off again, and it resets the clock. Running my experiment for 8 hours last night, I was able to hold this plastic right here and not burn myself. Also, the hour before we filmed, I also turned this on just to make sure that there was no residual heat. Especially if you have kids, grabbing it here, it just felt like room temperature. So it is very, very kid friendly. Let's compare lights. Number one is going to be the kerosene lantern. Let's go with the cons first. This thing smells, it's glass, it has fuel, and has an open flame. And the house is starting to get a little smoky. But the pros are going to be that this thing's very durable. Very durable. And as you can see, there's the light. Next is going to be a dual fuel CR123 or AA lantern. This has a big disadvantage because it loves to eat batteries, especially in the cold where the chemistries of the batteries aren't doing well. The major advantage that the Lantern 781 has over the Phoenix is that it uses the 1 Plus battery. Even if it's struggling that day, I can recharge it the next day, so I don't feel as bad if I'm using it in the cold weather. Next is going to be the star of the show. This is going to be the P781. As you can see here that there's a line and the diffusion of the light isn't very good. But when we're on vacation, we actually do not see this. And it looks horrible, but when we take this with us, it's not a factor for us. And there is enough light, especially on the dinner table, as you guys can see here. This is the high setting at 330 lumens. And this is going to be 80 to 100 watts on low. The pros. Number one is going to be about safety. In a disaster, you are going to be walking around with an LED light versus an open flame. Imagine tripping in your house and you have an open flame in your hand, or a candle, which is very dangerous. Or you'll be walking around with fuel and a flame, which is even more dangerous. Number two on the pros is going to be the USB port. The USB port is going to be charging at 5 watts. Even though limited, you have a really powerful power bank. That leads me to the battery itself. It is reusable and rechargeable and very versatile. Fourth is going to be the light. This light is bright enough. It is not an area light. It's not going to be a work light, but for camping and emergency preparedness, it is very good for the purpose. The cons. Let's start from the top. The handle. It doesn't have one. It has a hook. I don't really mind this, but some other people may have problems carrying it around. Number two is going to be the light. The light is not powerful enough to make this into a work light. It is a camping light. It isn't for emergency preparedness. Number three is going to be the USB port. It charges at 1 amp. That means that it's only going to charge your phone at 5 watts. So that's very slow, but it does do it. And it will conserve energy in emergency preparedness. And lastly, be careful, don't leave this out in the rain. It is not waterproof, just like the flashlight. The tip of the week is going to be using industrial glow tape. I put these in strategic places that I can find my equipment in the middle of the night. Here, I put it right next to the on button so I can acquire this thing in the middle of the night in pitch dark. Same with the flashlight. This flashlight, you can tell I did not do this for YouTube. This is in actual use. That way I can find it and put into battery when I need to. I hope this was a light bulb moment for you. Whenever I do a class, everybody always has a smile on their face like, I never thought of that. But this is a very, very tactical, very efficient way of using your brain and light.